The Zoning Board of Appeals is a 9-person volunteer citizen board appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the city council. Our procedure this evening is as follows. First, we will hear from the Planning and Development Services Unit, represented tonight by Mr. John Barrett. Then the petitioner or his or her representative will make his or her presentation. Petitioners will have 5 minutes in which to make their presentations. The board members may ask questions of either the city or the petitioner. We will acknowledge any written comments received by the board. We will allow an appearing party to express their support or objections. The board will discuss the appeal and formulate a resolution to approve the appeal. 5 affirmative votes of the board will be required for an appeal to be granted. Finally, any qualified party who is aggrieved by a decision of the board can appeal that decision to the Washtenaw County Circuit Court on a timely basis. Let's do roll call. Candace Breyer, I am here. Mike Daniel.
Here.
Dave DeVarty. Mike Dobmeyer.
Here.
Nicole Eisenman.
Here.
Todd Grant.
Here.
Heather Lewis. Julie Weatherby.
Here.
Kirk Westfall.
Here.
We have quorum. Moving on to approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Motion by Mike, second by Kirk. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to approval of the minutes. I understand that the minutes from the April and May meetings are complete. However, I don't think we had any time to review them, so if it's okay with everybody, I'll push those to next month's agenda. We do have minutes from the June 28th meeting, if I can get a motion to approve those minutes, or if anyone has any comments or corrections to those minutes, I guess. Julie makes a motion. Is there support from Kirk? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are at hearings and appeals, ZBA 17022 Berkeley Avenue. John?
Good evening. My name is John Barrett. I'm the zoning coordinator for the city of Ann Arbor. The first case tonight is ZBA case 17-022. The address is 307 Barclay Avenue. James Wani, property owner, is requesting a 30% variance from Chapter 55 zoning, Section 5:59, subsection D, to allow for 65% lot coverage in the rear yard setback when 35% is the maximum allowable. The petitioner is proposing to construct a 24-foot by 20-foot pavilion to an existing detached garage in the rear yard. The property is zoned R1D, single-family residential, which requires a 3-foot rear yard and 3-foot side yard setback for detached structures. The lot is 6,621 square feet in size, and the home was built in 1951. The proposed pavilion will be attached to the existing structure, which is a covered carport attached to the garage. The garage and carport comprise a total of 405 square feet in the rear setback, resulting in a nonconforming status for the lot coverage. If the variance is approved, the total coverage of the 3 structures in the rear setback will be garage 240 square feet, carport 165 square feet, and pavilion 240 square feet, for an approximate total of 645 square feet in the rear setback, or 65% of the rear setback. If you'll turn your attention to the monitors, the first slide is the location slide. You see the highlighted parcel. The property is just west of Main Street, and it's between Berkeley Avenue and Snyder Avenue. The next slide is the aerial showing the location of the property just west of the big house. This is the zoomed in aerial photo of the property. You can see the existing, as I'm showing it on the cursor, the existing detached garage with an attached carport, and the proposed pavilion will be in this area over existing brick pavers that are there. This is the survey that was submitted with the application showing the existing conditions. The next slide, I helped the applicant out by showing the 20-foot rear yard setback line, which is right here. It says approximate setback line. And then the hatched area will be the area that's not going to have lot coverage, no structures. And so the 24 by 20 pavilion which is proposed, will be, this area will be in the setback, this area is not, and this area, the detached garage that's existing and the carport, all three of these, this area above that setback line are outside of it. And then this is the area that will have the coverage for the 650 square feet. This is the site plan that was submitted by the applicant showing the hatched area, shows the proposed location of the pavilion. These are photos that I took when I was at the property. This is obviously the front of the house. These are the existing conditions. This is the detached garage, and this is the carport that's attached to it. This is the rear of the house. You can see it as it relates to the neighboring property just to the west. These are existing conditions. These are remnants of the pavilion that I will discuss in a minute. This is the photo showing the property to the west directly to them, and this is the area to the left of the screen where the proposed pavilion will be constructed. This is the lot adjacent to the subject property. To the east, it's a vacant lot, and you can see to the south, there's a multifamily residential project just south of the subject property. These are photos that were taken, I originally had to go out to the property in December of last year. The pavilion was built. I worked with the owners. A notice of violation was issued, and they came into compliance and removed the structure. And then subsequently, they decided they wanted to rebuild the pavilion, so they needed the variance, and that's why we're here this evening. And these are photos showing how the structure will, is a good example of what it will look like if the variance is granted. You see the relationship to the property lines, which is depicted by the fence. And that's the end of my presentation, and I will take questions at this time.
Any questions for staff? Kirk?
Thank you. I was just wondering if we could have some general explanation of why there is this rule about lot coverage and, you know, what the ordinance is trying to prevent in its current form.
They're preventing probably multiple things, so there's not a lot of structures and rear setbacks so you're encroaching with a bunch of coverage on lots to adjoining properties, and also I think a lot of it has to do with environmental effects, stormwater runoff.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any, Heather?
I was just wondering if we know how long the structure was up?
I think we might ask the applicant that, but I would say probably about 90 days. 3 months, yep, 90 days.
Julie?
This pavilion could be put in other places on this lot?
That's correct. It could be moved outside of the setback, more directly towards the front of the house, between the setback line and the house.
Okay.
Todd?
Question for staff. But John, if the pavilion were moved outside the setback, it still would violate the coverage rule.
No, the coverage rule applies to the rear setback, the rear 20 feet. If you look at the monitor,
Oh.
from this setback line back, it's for that. They can construct in that area between the setback line and the principal structure.
Understood.
Mike?
Do we know if the garage was built prior to the code in this area, or?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
The garage was built in the 50s, I believe, prior to the zoning ordinance coming into effect in 63.
Okay.
I think it was built just after the home was built, around there, sometime in the 50s.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, if the petitioner is here, if you could please step forward, sign in, state your name for the record. You'll have 5 minutes.
There we go. Hi, I'm Jim Wanty, and my name is on the house, but we have a group here that utilizes the house during football seasons. We have tailgating parties there, and we also host the Michigan From the Heart group of kids. You may have heard of them, recently had a golf outing for them. This is where the athletes at the University of Michigan go up to the hospital on Thursday nights. They meet at Big Bird. They go around and see all the kids with cancer and all the problems. So we have, and Ed's been involved with this group since his daughter was in it 30-some years ago, anyway. So one of the uses of the facility is we have a lot of these kids come over, and we feed them, we park them, feed them, have a bathroom for them, and then they go over to the football game. They have some are in wheelchairs and some crutches, whatever. So anyway, that's just one of the uses of the pavilion we have. I just want to say that the pavilion, if you look at the pictures again, it would be in line with the present garage that's back there. So the setback requirements would be, they wouldn't conform, but they would be conforming with a non-conforming garage. Does that make sense to you? Anyway, so it just would all flow back there. And you can see we have the pavers already in place, so we can stay away from the muddy feet and all that. I don't see this facility as adding any value to our house right now, and I think it just would be, just to let you know that the people behind us is a commercial parking lot for some residents. We also own the building next door, and the lot next door to us on the other side towards the stadium is an unbuildable, we've been told, unbuildable lot. So nothing would go up. We have no objections from anybody in the neighborhood, is what I'm trying to say. I think that about sum it up. So we ask for this variance, and please give us consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the petitioner? Okay, I'll note, we did not receive any letters of communication on this item, but if there's anyone here from the public to speak on this, please step forward, sign in, state your name. Seeing none, we're in discussion. Julie?
I live in this area, and I think this is a fairly big variance to me. I understand the reasoning behind it, but if this happens, then there's a lot of possibility for other places to have this same situation. It seems that it is somewhat self-imposed. This pavilion could be somewhere else on the property. I realize that changes parking, but that's, you still have options here. It doesn't seem like it's the minimum necessary. I kind of just have a hard time saying we really need to do this for football events. And right now, while the petitioner owns the property next door, that's not a given for down the road. And the residential residences behind, just because it's a rental, doesn't necessarily mean that people want to look at roofs any more than if it's owned. So I just find, I'm not convinced that this is necessary.
Candace?
Heather? Oh, sorry,
No,
Todd.
I think Heather was.
No, I was pointing at you.
Oh, okay, me, okay.
Todd.
So, when I looked at this yesterday, I was the mind, well, it's not that big a deal, and you did a very good job sort of explaining why what the purpose is, and it's not, benefiting the property. The problem I have, there are 5 criteria that we have to weigh these variances by, and the one I'm having a problem on is it the minimum variance that could do the job? And you heard from Mr. Barrett here, if you really reposition the pavilion outside the 20-foot setback, you don't even need a variance. And I think for that reason, I have to vote against the current setback, because you can do it without having to get a variance. So unless some other comment convinces me otherwise, I think I have to vote no in this case. I feel in part like a curmudgeon because we're disadvantaging folks in a worthwhile program, but you can do it in such a way that you really don't need a variance. You don't even have to come before us. If you can do that, I think that's a great option for you.
Sorry, sir, we're in discussion. Heather?
So I'm looking at the A through E, the 5 reasons, and there's nothing here to support granting this variance.
Mike?
Yeah, I mean, as much as I love tailgating, which is literally my favorite thing to do in the entire world, I have to agree with Heather and Todd. This would be awesome for tailgating, but I can't, in my role on this board, ignore our criteria on this, so. Yeah, I'm voting no.
I'll just reflect the same thing that the other board members have said. I agree that it doesn't fall into any of these categories. Love your program. I was an athlete at Michigan. I partook in it, but I don't think that has anything to do with what we're asked to consider here. So I just can't find a reason on any of these pieces to support this variance.
Todd?
I have a question for staff. John, Mr. Barrett, I assume that if they were to erect a tent during football games, because that's a temporary structure, it would come down after a football game, that's neither here nor there with respect to the zoning ordinance, correct?
That would be acceptable, yes.
Any other discussion or motion? Heather?
I guess I have another question for staff. So the wooden structure that's currently standing in the photo we're looking at, is that, how does that fall in the zone?
Those would have to be removed.
Kirk?
That reminds me of another question for staff. With regard to the fence height and opacity, is that code?
Yes, it's a 6-foot tall privacy fence, but it's in the rear yard, so it's in compliance. They're allowed to have 100% opaque once you get past the first 50 feet of the property, and they're well beyond that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Questions, discussion, motion? Kirk?
Oh, I'll just echo the comments we've heard before, and certainly it seems like they support worthy causes, and it's a shame that, the code hadn't been sought or communicated prior to construction of these. That's always a sad thing to see something built and then taken out, but, yeah, according to our criteria, I would have trouble justifying it.
I can make a motion?
Yep, go for it, Mike.
Okay. This is with regard to petition ZBA 17-022, 307 Berkeley Ave. Based on the following findings of fact and in accordance with the established standards for approval, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby grants the following variance from Chapter 55, Section 5-59D, accessory buildings to allow a 30% rear yard setback variance in order to construct a 24-foot by 20-foot pavilion to an existing detached garage in the rear yard. The maximum the rear setback coverage will be increased to 65% overall. A, the alleged practical difficulties are peculiar to the property and result from conditions which do not generally exist throughout the city. B, that the practical difficulties which will result from a failure to grant the variance include substantially more than mere inconvenience, inability to attain a higher financial return, or both. C, the variance, if granted, will not significantly affect surrounding properties. D, the circumstances of the variance request are not self-imposed, or E, the variance request is the minimum necessary to achieve reasonable use of the structure.
Do I have support? Nicole? We'll do roll call vote. Mike Daniel?
No.
Mike Dobmeyer?
No.
Nicole?
No.
Todd?
No.
Heather?
No.
Julie?
No.
Kirk?
No.
I'm also no. The request is denied. Moving on to ZBA 17023, 1700 Packard Street. John?
The next case is ZBA case 17-023. The address is 1700 Packard Street. Costa Pro LLC are requesting relief from Chapter 55 zoning, Section 5:80, Section 87, structure nonconformance, in order to convert basement space to living space. Petitioner seeks to add 2 additional bedrooms in the basement and join them to the first floor for a total of 6 bedrooms in the unit. The residence is nonconforming as it does not meet the required lot width or lot size. The subject parcel is zoned R4C, Multiple Family Residential District, and is located on Packard Street. The parcel is nonconforming for required lot size and lot width. The subject parcel is 6,621 square feet in size. The minimum lot size for the district is 8,500 square feet, and the lot width requirement for the district is 60 feet. The lot width is currently 50 feet in width. The structure was built in 1937 and is 2,368 square feet in size. Currently, the residence is a duplex containing four bedrooms in each unit. The applicant is proposing to join the basement and the first floor with a spiral staircase, creating 1 unit with 6 bedrooms. If the alteration is approved, the new unit will contain 6 bedrooms, allowing a maximum of 6 unrelated individuals to reside in the dwelling in the unit 1 in the downstairs. The applicant is not proposing any exterior modifications or an increase in size to the footprint of the structure. The only changes will be internal to the residence. The property is required to have 3 parking spaces and 5 will be provided. Additionally, 2 bike spaces will be provided for the tenants. If you'll turn your attention to the monitors, you'll see the location map. The property is highlighted. It's just on the west side of Packard Street and the corner of Henry. Next slide is the aerial location map. Next slide is a zoomed-in aerial photo of the property and its current conditions, and you see the parking lot in the back. This property is previously a dental office with a 2-bedroom unit upstairs. And it's recently been converted to its current configuration. 2 2-bedroom units upstairs, excuse me. This is the site plan that was submitted with the application. You see the parking spaces in the rear, and the entrance, one of the entrances to the basement unit will be right back here. This is the basement existing conditions, a floor plan. Level 1 existing with 4 bedrooms. This is the new work basement plan. You see 2 bedrooms additionally will be added, and there's the spiral staircase connecting the basement and the first floor to make 1 unit of 6 bedrooms. And that's the new level 1 work plan, site floor plan that was submitted with the application, showing the access right there. These are current photos when I was out at the site. You see the front of the house, my back is to Packard. This is standing at the corner of Packard and Henry. This is looking down Henry Street. You see the subject properties to my left. This is at the rear of the property, at the parking lot, looking forward to the subject structure. Existing parking conditions. This is the abutting property down Henry, the first property that abuts the subject property. This is the property that's directly across the street, across Henry, at the corner of Henry and Packard. This is a property that's adjacent to the subject property, just to the south. And you see the 2 units. That's the end of the staff presentation. If you have any questions, I will take them at this time.
Thanks, John. Todd?
Yes, tell me about basement bedrooms. I always thought they were not allowed if there's no window to the outside, but you've not addressed the issue of putting 2 bedrooms in the basement, so I assume it's compliant. If they need to.
They'll have to meet the requirements of the rental housing department for height and also for glazing requirements, window requirements, and size requirements. They'll receive their, they'll have inspections, and they'll have to receive a certified rental status.
Okay, so there's
Yeah.
there's no blanket prohibition on bedrooms and basements?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Julie?
I don't know if this is a better question for you or for the petitioner. In the basement, as I was reading some of this, how does the, like, laundry room set off from the basement bedrooms and the access from the other unit? I wasn't sure how that,
The architect is here tonight, and I'll
Okay.
let him explain that.
okay,
He's the pro.
okay.
Mike?
So the lot is non-conforming because it doesn't meet the required lot size and lot width.
Correct.
If the lot did, would they have to get permission to add these 2 bedrooms?
No.
Okay. Thanks.
Heather?
As a non-conforming structure, when the change of use from the dental to the residential happened, did it come before this group, or
No,
should
it didn't need to. It was a non-conforming use. It was a dental office in a residential district, which was non-conforming, but now it's a conforming use. You're allowed to have two units in a R4C by right. But since they're not meeting the requirements of the lot size, once they want to expand and create habitable space, then that makes them have to get the alteration to a non-conforming structure.
So,
Todd?
clarifying, John, so the non-conforming piece is that they're going from 4 to 6 bedrooms.
On a non-conforming lot and lot size, yep.
Got it.
If they had 8,500 square feet and 60 feet of lot width, then they could do this by right.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, if the petition, oh, sorry,
One more,
Mike.
sorry. And Johnny, I know you included some pictures of the parking lot.
Mhm.
How many spots is that actually accommodated?
They can have, if it's striped off, they'll have 5 spaces.
5 if it were striped off.
Correct, because that's what meets the ordinance lot size, or the
Right.
space size.
Okay, thanks.
Did you have a question, Kirk?
So these are different standards for approval than the previous one?
Yes, it's not a variance, it's an alteration.
Right, so, and, you know, I believe we've had a similar application just about a block or so ago.
We've got quite a few.
Right. When we're looking at complying with, you know, the requirements of the zoning chapters as closely as possible, what is the nature of that mandate? Can you give some color on how we are to evaluate that? Like, I understand the part about not having a detrimental effect on neighboring property, although some opinions vary on that, just according to the correspondence we've gotten. But in terms of adhering to the zoning chapter, is that meaning looking at density, typical density for parcels of this size? Or how do you recommend our framing, how we think about this?
And for this particular subject property, they're allowed to have 6 units if they were meeting the lot size, so it is geared towards density, higher density, and along thoroughfares. So this is meeting this lot is located on along Packard Street, which is a thoroughfare, main thoroughfare, and it's R4C. It doesn't meet 8,500 square feet, but it is one of the bigger lots along Packard, and it's zoned for multifamily. So it's kind of meeting the standards of the ordinance, but it's not quite.
Okay, okay.
I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it's just the criteria with which, you know, a similar sized parcel, you know, would allow in terms of, it sounds like a lot of the residential, the nearby neighbors are commenting about density and so on, and some comments about students, which is not really applicable to what we're looking at, but just helping frame how we can judge this with regard to density is helpful. Thank you.
Heather?
Another question for staff. Would the zoning permit a building with 3 separate units?
No.
Okay.
They would have to go through the site plan process and get approval through the planning commission and city council at 3 units. Yep.
Julie?
Because I'm still relatively new, I do know that something like close to 70% of R4C is out of compliance for lot size.
You can bump that up to 90 maybe.
Okay. 83, I
Yeah.
think, is the actual number. So, and I don't know what the previous decisions have been, so I appreciate the question of how we're supposed to judge this, because potentially there are very big implications if we say yes to this based on lot size. I mean, that could be a lot of properties then would be maxed out to 6 bedrooms based on lot size within some parameters. Is there, I guess I don't know what the precedence versus, I mean, do we just do this on the merit of this particular one? Is that how these are all?
Well, the alterations to a non-conforming structure, the requirements are not nearly as stringent as a variance, as you can see, so.
Right.
Okay.
And if I'm not mistaken, any particular decision, it does not set precedent because each is evaluated on its own merits in general for ZBA.
Every case is judged on its own merit. I would agree with that. Yes, sir.
Mike?
The footprint of this lot is not changing, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Footprint is not changing, the structure size is not changing. It's just an interior alteration.
Okay.
Anything else for staff? Okay, the petitioner could please step forward, state your name for the record, sign in, you'll have 5 minutes.
Good evening, folks. Rob Burrows, OX Studio, the architect of record on the project, representing the petitioner this evening. Bear with me for 1 second. Thank you for having us in front of you tonight. I actually had a nice litany of points to bring up between John's presentation and your questions with him. You've taken the knees out from a lot of my exposition, so I won't try to rehash it. But the long and short is that, my perspective is 3 simple ways to look at this, what it is right now. It's an R4C zoned property. R4C, if you look at the map, runs contiguous almost exclusively up and down Packard. Thank you. If you look at your screen itself, it's very consistent in terms of use and application, and also some of the challenges of the R4C district with many of the adjoining properties along the same frontage line itself. Within R4C district, we are allowed upwards of we can obviously be single family, but this district is defined very distinctly as multifamily, higher density residential, specific to the central area of the city, specifically to the University of Michigan campus in terms of proximity and location. As part of that, one of the understandings is we can by right establish an understanding that we can attain 2 dwelling units by right within the district itself. Within each dwelling unit, we could potentially attain upwards of 6 individual bedrooms in each dwelling unit. That's not the petition tonight. I'm just pointing out the overarching principles of what this district underlies. Some of the questions were asked. I'm just trying to summarize a little bit more succinctly from my perspective. So what we presently have then right now is an R4C zone property. It is distinctly multifamily. It's a conversion from a non-conforming use, which was commercial. Commercial is now gone. We took the underlying 2 dwelling units that had been there and maintained the same status, if you will. The upper level was converted into a single standalone upper level duplex, which is 4 bedrooms. The first level was converted into a single standalone duplex, which is 4 bedrooms as well. There was an exterior access door provided. This may answer your question, Mrs. Weatherby, about, if you go to the basement plan, please, John. The basement, if you can go to the existing conditions, please. I think you just toggle by it. One back the other way.
That's existing, and this is.
Basement, actually. I thought there was an open.
One
Oh,
more.
you know what, that's fine, I'm sorry, because you want to see it in reference to the plans, or to the bedrooms. There's an exterior stair that was installed as part of these plans that allowed access to the basement from the upper unit. The upper unit was always divorced from basement access. So as part of the concept of converting this explicitly to residential, in order to provide access from the individual units to the basement, where there's laundry, obviously mechanical and storage and other things like that, an exterior stair was added during the construction in 2016. So that is how we get to the basement and how the laundry is accessed from both units directly. What we are proposing tonight is essentially an alteration to non-conforming use. As many of you have discussed and John's pointed out, this is not a variance request. What we're literally asking for is expanding our current 4-bedroom unit on the first floor to a 6-bedroom unit by combining it with a portion of the basement level. This would include a directly communicating stair that intertwines those together and binds them together as one single dwelling unit. We would obviously be in compliant with the housing code. The building, I should point out, was fully permitted and approved when it went through. It's also been approved and is presently occupied as as 2 dwelling unit, rental unit at this time. That unit would just be an expansion out in the basement. It would have full egress window requirements, all the other criteria established by both the building code, which is our primary vehicle in terms of determining how we use that, and as well as the Ann Arbor Housing Code. So egressing, other issues like that were brought up, it'll be full compliance with that. There is no expansion to the building footprint. It's explicitly contained within the building itself. There is no horizontal, vertical, anything else. We're taking a basement space that was functionally non-habitable because it was never used as a functional room per se. It was a traditional basement. We're taking a portion of that and converting it to that attached component to the first floor. So that's really the bones of the petition itself. So I want to clarify a few points as well, and then just as part of my summary, I want to be clear, this is not an apartment building. It's a multifamily duplex. So distinctly different than that. It's not a boarding house. We're not here tonight requesting any variances, rezoning, anything like that changes the underlying zoning. We're just here asking for a simple alteration. Everything we're requesting is within the covenants of the R4C district, meaning we're not asking for anything beyond the covenants of what's presently prescribed for the property. Ultimately, that's it. So I'm certainly here for questions. I know the owner's here to answer any questions as well this evening. So thank you.
Thank you. Questions for the petitioner? Heather?
Please.
Looking at the new work basement plan, bedroom number 6, the line work on the right there, is that a counter and sink?
Yes. Yes.
And what is that?
Basically, the idea was to basically have a small little nook in there, just dedicated, because it's one of the larger bedrooms. It was something to do with the extra space that was available. And I should note as well, there is a doored access into the laundry room from that, into the basement from that area.
Right, and it looks as though there's a sink of some sort in the laundry area?
Yes, yes. There was certainly a slop sink down there.
Mm-hmm. And just out of curiosity, how do you reach the second floor?
The second floor is accessed, there's 2 stairs actually, because if you recall, that was originally two units on the upper level. So there's actually 2 stairs on the exterior of the building that provide direct access to it.
Okay, so the stair that's shown on the bottom of the plan, that goes from the basement to to ground?
That's correct, that's correct. So if I'm looking at the screen, I apologize to talk behind you or over you. That stair that you see in that image is an at-grade stair that comes down from grade level downwards to the basement itself,
Thanks.
which is existing. That may help. Thank you, John.
Julie?
And so, I think just to clarify my question, so both units have access to the basement facilities, laundry and storage, it looks like.
That's correct.
And then the 6-bedroom unit has a door to the laundry facility through a bedroom?
Well, that is, the 6th bedroom is the bedroom, yes.
Right, but I mean, if you're in bedroom 1, 2, 3, 4,
You wouldn't be
and
able to go through
5,
unless you're traversing through that bedroom. That's
you
correct.
would have to go through that bedroom.
That's correct.
To access the laundry facility.
That's correct.
And if you had that door open, anyone from the second floor could get into any of the 6-bedroom?
Yes,
I mean-
potentially, but typically those are on closers because of the rating condition and separate use, separate functions like they have.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Okay. Oh, Kirk?
Yeah, I
Please.
guess I'll just throw this in. It's not germane to our decision, but I just thought you might want a chance to respond to some of the narrative that's been presented to us about landlords leaving packaging material in apartments and trash overflowing into the lot. Is there, would you like to speak to that, since it can sometimes color residents, neighbors' perception of what we should be looking at?
By all means. I'm going to, in honor of our tailgating opportunity a few moments ago, I'm going to punt, and please, if we could address that to the owner, if that's okay. She came specifically this evening to help address any of those concerns.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone who is here from the public who wishes to speak on this, please step forward, state your name for the record, and sign in. You'll have 3 minutes.
I should sign in first.
Yeah, either now or when you're done, it doesn't matter.
Hi. My name is Letitia Shapiro, and I've lived and owned 1706 Packard Street for the last 29 years. I've spent most of my life living in this house. I love the neighborhood. I've raised my children here. The schools are terrific. I love that I'm located near a small shopping area with easy access to public transportation. My property shares 132 feet. It adjoins the property under discussion. My house is that yellow house that you can barely see in the description. The 1700 Packard Street, the physical building is about 5 feet from my fence line. And in some cases, the parking lot, the cars are right next to my fence line. I can address what the configuration of that house has been and was even before the dentist. I know a lot of the history of the area. In the last year, the apartments at 1700 Packard Street have appeared to have been only partially inhabited. I'm told that the tenants were renting individual rooms with others they had not met before, much as like in a rooming house. I don't know how many tenants were actually there the entire time, at any one time or in total. And I like to point out that while the parking space requirements of the zoning ordinance would appear to be currently satisfied by the building, the reality shows an already problematic parking situation. Last year, the 5 parking spaces were not sufficient for the people living there. On 2 occasions, I came home to find an unknown car in my driveway. At one time, I was able to park on Henry Street and track down this to an associate of a tenant. The other time, I had trouble finding nearby parking on Henry Street, and I circled around and ultimately was able to park in my driveway. Somebody just left. On a handful of other occasions, I've had cars pulling into my driveway and blocking my parked car. In the 28 years before this happened, there was one situation where a patient of Dr. Heald had parked in my driveway, and I was able to ask them to move the car. But just in 28 years, and it's been fewer, I mean, there have been more people blocking my car in the last year than there were in 28 years. This is not a complaint, though, about the current building. This is just pointing out that there is already a detrimental effect on my property. Adding 2 more bedrooms is going to increase the detrimental effect to my property. The trash is significantly increased over what there was when the property was a dental office. And adding 2 more people is, or the potential for 2 more people is a problem. In closing, look, it's relatively quick to modify a building. Physical modifications and their social impact last a long time. Please do not approve this structural alteration to this already non-conforming space. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board? If so, please sign in, state your name for the record.
Hi, my name's Heidi Mitchell. I'm the property owner, along with my wife, of 1700 Packard, and I just wanted to stop in tonight. I was in town, and it's a great opportunity to take a look at this and see how your board works, and have a chance to share my 2 cents about the situation. First of all, I want you to know that I'm from Ann Arbor. I went to Slauson Junior High School. I went to Pioneer. I went to the University of Michigan. We both my wife and I grew up in southeastern Michigan. We now live in San Francisco. But Michigan, Ann Arbor is very special to us. Our kids are very familiar with this. My daughter goes to Central. My son's going to go to Stamps Art School in Michigan. So we're by no means absentee landlords. We have a very small family investment portfolio of properties completely located in Lower Burns Park. You might have seen the pictures in the pamphlet or in the packet. We try to do a really good job with our renovations. And I think we do a good job serving our tenants. We have put together a team, I think, of excellent people that service our properties and deal with our tenants. And there's just a couple things that I want to address specifically about what's in this packet in terms of the emails that have come from the neighbors. First and foremost, I'm really disappointed that this has been the experience of my neighbors. Not the least of which reason is because we pay a lot of money for maintenance, for oversight of our tenants. All of our tenants have to go through a process of going through background checks and submitting lease applications. So neither this property or any of the other properties we have are rooming houses. It's a serious little family business that we run. And I'm disappointed that we've missed the mark in terms of being good neighbors in a neighborhood that is very, very special to us. When we're in town, we stay in Lower Burns Park in a different place that we have. So, that's something that, regardless of how this decision is made, we'll try to do a better job of that. Some things that come to mind are different kinds of fencing or landscaping that we can put into place to give our neighbors more shield from our tenants. Although I have to say, looking at these pictures, none of our tenants knew that someone was going to come and take pictures. And whenever I'm in town, which is pretty frequently, this is about how the property looks. I mean, if you look at the picture of the driveway, it looks pretty clean to me. So, that's not a setup. That's just how it looks. But I'm going to reach out to every person on this list personally. I'm going to give them my phone number. I'm going to make sure they have the number of the property manager. I don't know how many of these things play into the request, but these are things that we're going to address anyway. So there was a question that somebody had.
Yeah, Kirk, did you have a question for the owner still? Was it you that had a question for the owner?
Are we in the question time?
Well, since she's here, if you wanted to
Sure.
re-ask your question, I guess.
This was a specific complaint that the tenants have complained to the neighbors that the landlords left packaging material in their apartments.
Well, I think possibly the one thing I can think of is a downstairs tenant. I don't know what they were doing, and I don't know how this happened, but they broke the glass in the shower. And the new shower doors arrived, and they were delivered and put inside the house. And I think there was a misunderstanding. The tenant thought that this was building material of the contractor, but it was actually the shower doors that were going to replace the shower doors that she herself had broken. So, again, it was a misunderstanding, but I would hope that that doesn't make us bad landlords. I don't think it does.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Anyone else from the public here to speak on this? I will note that we did receive some communication on this item. We have a letter of opposition from the residents at 1428 Henry Street, a letter of opposition from Andrew O'Neill at 1423 Henry Street. We have a letter from Letitia Shapiro at 1706 Packard Street in opposition, and we have a letter of support from Bruce Warden and Vanessa Mayeski at 1614 Packard Street. With that being said, we're in discussion. Todd?
I guess I'll jump in first. This is a fairly easy approval for me. Most of the public comments and the information is a bit about the effect on the neighbors. But the way I think of that, this is a zoning board of appeals. We're here for zoning or alterations of non-conforming structures. It's easy for me because there's no change in the building envelope. And all the alterations are going to be inside. And from the point of view of the ZBA, that means that there's no impact on the neighboring properties. The issues that Ms. Shapiro and the other neighbors have faced, as evidenced by the letters, they were here to talk about it, but assuming all that stuff is correct, have to do with the behavior of the tenants, which to some extent, of course, are outside the control of any landlord. The landlord is in Ypsilanti or San Francisco or 3 blocks away. The 6 tenants are okay, a basement bedroom is okay. I would just, of course, it's always, is a very practical matter to have good neighbors, for tenants to reach out to good neighbors. And I would just say that for Ms. Shapiro and the other folks, if they have misbehaving tenants, that they should, call the police. It's always been an issue in the extended Burns Park neighborhood with wild parties and loud parties and people leaving trash everywhere and peeing on lawns, but that's not a ZBA concern. I don't think that's, when the criteria talk about negative impact on the neighbors, I think it pertains more closely to the shape of the envelope of the building. Repeating myself, there's no change to the envelope. So for me, this is an easy approval. I will vote yes. Unless I'm otherwise convinced by my fellow members' comments, the errors of my ways.
Kirk?
If I could just get a little clarity from staff. I know the comment was made with regard to the existing basement bedroom. I think there was a comment made on that, and if I'm not mistaken, and I didn't see bedroom labeled on the existing conditions.
Is there, I'm not sure I understand the question. There's an existing bedroom?
So a comment was made about the existing basement bedroom,
Where was that?
I think during
Oh.
public commentary.
Uh,
A shower door being broken in the basement.
On unit, on the level, street level.
The street, okay, I'm sorry, I thought I heard basement bedroom, okay. Thank you.
Heather?
So whenever I see a spiral staircase, I wonder how they're going to get the furniture down. And then I saw the very direct access from the stair that does go into the laundry room first and then into bedroom number 6. This this in some ways reminds me of another variance we saw recently where there was actually a door between the upper and the lower levels, and there was direct access into the lower level, so that it could function as a 3-unit. I understand that the lower level and the first level will be open to each other with a spiral stair. Sort of human nature makes me think that the bottom 2 bedrooms might sort of function as a 3rd unit. You know, if I were to park my car in the back, I'd cut through the stair in the laundry room. And so it, in some ways, it feels like a 3-unit building, which concerns me.
Mike?
So I'm in agreement with Todd on this one. For me, the fact that the footprint's not increasing, that if this were on a conforming lot, they wouldn't be in front of us. I certainly appreciate the comments of the people who wrote in and the neighbor who spoke to us tonight. I feel like the owner was sincere in her response as well, and so I'm also with Todd that you know, a neighbor parking or a tenant or a friend of a tenant parking in someone's adjoining driveway. I hope that never happens ever again, and if it does, then, you know, the proper authority should be notified. But as far as our criteria for this, I am going to vote yes.
Any other discussion or motion? Kirk?
I guess I appreciated Mike's comments, and I guess, you know, it's not to take away any of the neighbors' sincerity of their complaints. I know in neighborhoods like this where there are both students as well as permanent residents, there are conflicts, and, you know, I guess it involves some discretion to tease out what we can characterize as a detrimental effect on neighboring properties. So, you know, with regard to the parking, that can be true of any unit. You know, there might be people staying over or a couple living there and they both want to have cars, and that's not something we can control. And I just, in practical terms, I don't think we should force people to park cars on their property, period. But, you know, and the noise, you know, we have ordinances to take care of that. So and I would encourage people to complain when necessary about that. But in terms of an internal renovation, just exercising some discretion about the density, you know, if there are violations about how many people are living in each unit, certainly that complaint should be filed with the rental housing folks, and I don't consider that in our purview either. So, I mean, it's a close one. It's the thought that this would precipitate others looking to increase bedroom spaces is a valid concern. So I guess I'd like to hear from other board members.
Mike?
I guess I have a question for John, and I'm not sure if you have the answer to this. As the floor plan currently sits, there's 4 bedrooms on the first floor. But could there be 6 people living in that space?
If they meet the requirements of the rental housing code, in other words, if the bedrooms are a large enough square footage to accommodate 2 people in that bedroom.
Okay.
Yes. It's not necessarily always about bedrooms, it's about number of unrelated people living in a unit.
Yeah. I think that's a key piece for me, and I agree with what's been said, and I'm also reading through these messages that talk about primarily the number of people, and to a certain degree, the type of people that are living in this place. And I don't see my role in the ZBA as, in this case, related to that. So I'm leaning more towards approving this based on the merits of what Mike and Todd have brought up already.
Todd?
Yeah, if I may piggyback on what Mike Dobmeyer and Kirk Westfall said, I think there's a little bit of ambiguity in the inherent phrase, increasing the intensity of a non-conforming use. I look at our role here at the ZBA is dealing more with the hard shell or envelope of the building, but of course, the number of tenants that would have to meet the rental code. That said, I think the concern to some extent is already addressed because the architect, Mr. Burrows, I think is his last name, mentioned that this special zoning district runs up and down Packard. And given the unique history of this city and its location to Central Campus, I suspect that this special zoning district was set aside for the precise purpose of providing student housing. So it's easily walkable to Central Campus. And so I'm not really terribly concerned about increasing the number of folks inside a building as long as it complies with the rental code. I think that's where that issue should be addressed. And that, as I see it, we should be addressing the physical part of the structure. So I'm not saying that that's not worth considering, but I don't look at that as the key thing in how I would be deciding the issue today. Maybe you disagree, Kirk, I don't know.
Julie?
Just one note, because I was the chair of the R4C zoning committee. R4C is a zoning code in use across the city. It's not specific to campus or university. It's not intended to be university housing or student housing, so just for that. I agree, if I were to have to talk about this building as just a person talking about it on the street, I would not like this. I think this bedroom that a bedroom that 5 of my closest friends have a key to and can go in and out of is awkward. I think adding 2 bedrooms I live in an R4C neighborhood, and 4 bedrooms sometimes is not as problematic as a 6-bedroom, but a lot of that just relates to who's living there. And I don't think that's under the purview of the ZBA. And this does seem it complies in a zoning sort of way that I think, whether I like it or not, or whether I would, commiserate with the owner or the neighbors, I think for our purposes, interior walls can be altered, as you've seen. It's had multiple uses, and I think it would be difficult for me to see a reason to not approve it.
Any other discussion or motion?
Well, since I stuck my neck out first, and this is a shorter one than usually, so.
Go for it, Todd.
Yeah, go for it. So regarding ZBA petition 17-023 pertaining to 1700 Packard Street, requesting permission to alter a non-conforming structure. Based on the following findings of fact and in accordance with the established standards for approval, the Zoning Board of Appeals, the ZBA, hereby grants permission to alter a non-conforming structure per submitted plans because the alteration complies as nearly as practicable with the requirements of the zoning chapter and will not have a detrimental effect on neighboring property.
I have a motion from Todd. Do I have support? Support from Kirk. Nicole?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Heather?
No.
Julie?
Yes.
Kirk?
Yes.
I vote yes. Mike Daniel?
Yes.
Mike Dobmeyer?
Yes.
The request is approved. Moving on, we have no unfinished business, reports and communications. We have addressed all those as part of our appeals. Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to address the ZBA? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? From Kirk, support. From Julie, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, John.